Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. As you know, we are here for the Go Global webinar, another one from the Go Global webinar series Startup Portugal is promoting to support entrepreneurs and founders going abroad. This one will be focused on the UK, specifically on how to manage this new situation of post-Brexit. And well, I hope you find it interesting, because I'm sure that we will, and we will learn a lot about it. First off, to kick off the webinar in the best possible way, I would like to ask Stephanie Freitas from Startup Portugal to join me on stage. Stephanie is our one-stop shop manager, and is obviously the best person that you can find in Startup Portugal to ask questions regarding anything about entrepreneurship in Portugal. So Stephanie, if you would be so kind as to join me.
That's great. Hi, Andre. Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning to everyone that's joining us today. Like Andre said, this is our Go Global webinar, which is very exciting. So if you're looking at expanding your business abroad, specifically in the UK, you're definitely in the right place. I also wanted to say that post this webinar, you will be receiving a report. This is an internal report that was designed specifically for this webinar and for our audience. So in this report, you'll find all the information on the initiatives and opportunities that you can explore in the UK. So opportunities will be including our relationship with the UK, the climate environment, the investment climate environment, kind of looking at the different startups and incubators that are present, as well as the key opportunities for you as the Portuguese entrepreneurs, kind of looking to expand your business in the UK. So you'll see this report directly after the webinar. But if you have any other questions, like Andre said, there is the one-stop shop initiative that is available for you. In this one-stop shop, you'll have one-on-one personal direct business support. So if you have any questions after the webinar, please feel free to go onto the one-stop shop website. You can schedule an online meeting with me, and I'll be here to support you along the way, and hopefully be able to connect you with all the right actors in the UK as well. But for now, welcome once again, and I'll hand it over to Andre and to the rest of the speakers, and looking forward to an amazing webinar.
Thank you, Stephanie. And just before we move on, it's important to say that One Stop Shop is available at our website, so startupportugal.com/one-stop-shop. If you are interested in knowing more about the Go Global webinar series that we are promoting, please visit startupportugal.com/go global. And I think that's it. So moving on, and once again, thank you, Steph, for your words. I would like to call on stage Pedro Patrício, director to the UK. Director to the UK of AICEP, which is a trade investment agency from Portugal, and is the commercial and economic counselor to the Embassy of Portugal in the UK. So, Pedro, if you would be so kind as to join me.
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for passing me the floor. Firstly, AICEP, for those of you that don't know, is the commercial department of the Portuguese Embassy, and like Andrea referred, the Portuguese Trade and Investment Agency. It's a pleasure to be here today, and it was AICEP gladly accepted joining Startup Portugal in the organization of this event for three main reasons. Firstly, the overall importance and dimension of the British market, including its economic and commercial relationship with Portugal, the bilateral relationship UK-Portugal. Secondly, the extraordinary potential of the British startup ecosystem. And thirdly, Portuguese startups can in fact use the British ecosystem as an excellent tool to scale up and internationalize the British market and as the world as a whole. I'd start by saying that in this opening remarks, I was saying that although the UK has left the European Union, all the favorable conditions for the success of the startup companies remain: availability of funding, availability of talent, and incredible attractive ecosystem. And the speakers in this webinar will give you a clear understanding of how to navigate and approach in a practical manner the potentiality of this ecosystem. So my regards to my colleagues who will be speaking today. I'm certain that your input and your insight will be very valuable for the audience. As for the dimension of the UK market, I'll just give a few numbers. It's the second biggest European economy, only behind Germany, the sixth biggest global economy. In trade in goods, it's the 10th largest exporter worldwide, the 5th largest importer in the world. And in the services, which may be the area that interests us most here in this webinar, second largest exporter worldwide, and mainly in management services and financial services. And I'd add another comment on the UK telecom exports, which represent approximately 8% of the total of the GDP. So it is a particularly important sector. In terms of research and development, which is of course interesting and important for the current ecosystem, for startups in the current ecosystem, it's the 8th biggest investor in research and development. It has top universities at a global scale, and it attracts foreign direct investment in this field more than any other country. And perhaps another data is that it's the ranks 4th place in the ranking of Global Innovation Index in 2020. The tech sector represents almost 10% of the total workforce, and it grew approximately 40% in the last 2 years. The UK market has over 70 unicorns, and it was considered the European region to scale, the best European region to scale up tech businesses. So congratulations for Startup Portugal for this initiative. It's a pleasure, like I've referred, to answer any questions. And if I may add, as the Portuguese working here in the UK, it's also a pleasure to see that it's not only the British companies and other companies that have invested in the UK. We Portuguese, we also have many Portuguese companies that have invested here. And I'd add perhaps 20% of Portuguese services export to the UK are from IT, from telecom, and from financial services. The Portuguese unicorn Farfetch has its headquarters in London. The other Portuguese unicorns, such as OutSystems, Feedzai, and Talkdesk, also have registered offices here in the UK. We have over 150 Portuguese companies in the UK with a wide range of sectors, and 45% of those are technology-based businesses. You can hear me, but you cannot see me.
Yeah, exactly. That's what's
okay. No problem. And just to terminate, I was just finishing this. These are opening remarks. I know that we have excellent presentations ahead of me, but to terminate, is to say that it's a pleasure for AICEP to assist the companies, the audience here present, in their journey, in their internationalization process. And we work closely, startups, and in this area, it's an area that we can work very closely with DIT Portugal and with the other stakeholders that are here present. So once again, I will be at your disposal to answer any questions that may arise, and thank you for this event.
Thank you, Pedro, and thank you for the kind words as well. Let's see if we have questions in the end for you, because I know that we are getting already some questions from our audience. So if you would be so kind as to stick till the end, it would be amazing. Now moving on, I would like
certainly, of course I will.
Thank you, Pedro. Now I would like to call on stage Ana Cristina Abreu, Head of Investment at UK's Department of International Trade. And if you would be so kind as to join me on stage, open your camera, and well, the stage is all yours. So please feel free to share your presentation on opportunities for Portuguese startups, which I'm sure there are a lot, as Pedro said as well.
Thank you, Andre. I'll try to now share my screen. This is the moment. Can you confirm that?
We are seeing your screen. And now it's on full screen, I think. Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay. Okay. So first of all, thank you for the invitation from Startup Portugal, and thank you for the endorsement from AICEP yes, we are one of the organizations that are here to support the Portuguese companies that want to expand to the UK. We are based in the British Embassy in Lisbon. We have a team of 3 people that have been working with Portuguese companies looking to expand and to scale up in the UK market. So my presentation has lots of information. I'll try to skip some of the slides, but I think it will be available for all the participants then to go through and maybe check some of the links in it. But I would like to start by saying that the UK is an open market and is open to foreign innovators and founders. And this can be either through the companies that set up their subsidiaries and that expand, but also Portuguese founders that, as has been said, are founders and leading some of the high growth companies in the UK. So I have here a range of some of the Portuguese investors that are in the UK, and about half of them are technology-based companies, and there are lots of startups that we supported in their journey to land in the UK and keep in touch to ensure that they continue to grow. I will now give you an idea of why the UK and why the UK is really the ideal market for companies to scale up. And this is due to a combination of 4 factors that we think that make the UK the ideal place. It has to do with the market itself, its growth rates, the opportunities, the investment that exists in the market, and the support also for exports, and particularly on the digital sector. The estimates are for a continuous growth. So the market itself is an attractive one, and it can be joined by many companies to benefit from that and to increase their footprint internationally as well from the UK base. We have also business networks, and this means that there is an environment where there are tech meetups across the UK for companies at their early stages, mentoring programs for companies to feel that they are not alone in their journey, and some growth programs that are run by some organizations such as the ITE, but also TechNation, and innovation networks that are the catapults where the companies can join other companies, universities, organizations dealing with innovation. And another factor is the funding and the access to capital. The numbers speak for themselves, and we have latest data that, again, 2020, there was a record year in terms of VC tech funding, reaching 15 billion US dollars. Also in terms of the business support infrastructure for the companies, this is accelerators, incubators, and also the support that exists from government policy in terms of tax, R&D, etc. I will now go through some of these aspects more in depth. On the opportunities, yes, in a number of sectors, and also in terms of services, manufacturing and industry, consumer, the opportunities are huge. Here is a list of some of the subsectors and some data on the estimated increase in some of them. The government support for early stage investment, I would like to mention the Investment Enterprise Scheme and the Seed Enterprise Investment Scheme. These are available for startups to have private investors investing in the companies. It's a program also very successful. The tax relief, it's really mainly for R&D. So for the startups and the companies that want to continue to develop their solutions, their technologies, they can then link to the R&D system in the UK and have some of the costs to be claimed in their accounts. I have here this slide also to give you an idea that the UK is not only London, so there is a huge effort from the government and from organizations also to ensure that all across the UK the levels of entrepreneurship continue to grow. And in this map you can see that yes, London has the highest number of deals in terms of VC deals, but the entrepreneurship in some other areas, Northeast, Scotland, etc., are huge. So there are huge opportunities as well in these regions. In terms of the access to capital, we have in the IT Europe, we have launched a program to help the startups that we are working with to access venture capital. This is a program that was born in Europe, and one of the people in my team is leading this program at European level. And this is an opportunity for the startups to have a matchmaking service with some VCs that expressed an interest in being introduced to the companies that the IT is working with. I think Mustard Seed is part of this VC matchmaking project. In terms of business support and what is there to help the companies when they start landing in the UK, incubators, accelerators, incredible numbers of companies being supported at one given time. We are talking about 7,000 companies in terms of incubators, almost 4,000 supported by accelerator programs, very specific, some on some sectors, in terms of fintech, in terms of telecoms. There are specific accelerators working on this area. And as you can see in the map, there are some areas with strong number of incubators that, of course, we can also help companies to get in touch with. In terms of the programs, the Tech Nation growth programs that I mentioned before, here's some more detail. They are for companies at early stage, but also for established companies. And there are specific sector programs in areas that have been identified, such as fintech, cyber, AI, and net zero. And there have been some Portuguese companies that, after establishing in the UK, that join these programs. And there is one Portuguese company in this latest cohort. The Global Entrepreneur Program is another mentoring program that is run by DIT. It works with deal makers that are private entrepreneurs that work with government to help startups to land. There is some specific requirements to join this program, such as having a technology that is really innovative and the willingness to really transfer the HQ to the UK within a certain period of time after the work of support has been completed. So this is something that we also run, and we have been having, on average, every year, at least 2 Portuguese companies that land in the UK through the Global Entrepreneur Program. I would like to leave for, I left for last as a slide, the issue of what has changed with Brexit. In fact, most of the things remain the same. I mean, the opportunities, the openness of the market. So I think for the companies, it's still an open market. The issue of working in the UK, I would say, is the biggest change that happened. In fact, if companies in the UK want to recruit staff from abroad, they will need to have a visa. So this impacts for the companies that want to set up in the UK, if they want to actually bring someone from Portugal to work at their companies. But the fact is that there are many routes to do this. And first of all, don't think that the UK is now closed for business. No, you can still visit the UK. There are no requirements for visa for business travel. You can visit to have your meetings, to grow your network, to attend events, and up to 6 months you can visit the market, and you cannot do any paid work. So the thing between working and visiting for business, that I think that's the thing that I'd like to stress, that you can still travel. Once you decide to set up a business, of course you have a number of visa categories that you can use, the ones that are more interesting to you. If you need to have someone from your company to go to the UK to set up the business, you have the representative of an overseas business visa scheme. It cannot be the founder or the CEO, but you have then the startup visa, lots of options, and we are here to also help the companies navigate through this process. And it's one of the things that changed, but we don't see it as an obstacle, because the UK has a system of visa for a long time. The UK is the biggest recipient of FDI in Europe. So we always had visa schemes for other nationalities other than EU to set up their businesses, their startups from all over the world. So the system is very used to deal with this type of requirements, and the success rate for visa requests is almost 100%, is 90-something%. So no worries. In terms of data transfer, the agreement has been reached between the UK GDPR and the EU. So in terms of data transfer, I think everything is sorted, let's say. In terms of banking and transfer and payments, UK is still part of SEPA, so things will go, maybe there will be some changes in terms of the information that it's required for those bank transfers, but these are all things that we can help companies navigate. Talking about what we can do to help companies navigate is part of our services. We are here to support the companies. We work hand in hand with the companies and introducing them in the UK to a wide network that can help them to make the best decisions, to access the right networks, and to introduce them also to expert organizations and service providers to give them the advice that we cannot give as a government, but we are here to help. My team is here with the contact details, and any questions that you might have, please feel free, and we'll be here to help.
Thank you, Ana Cristina. Yeah. Thank you so much for your presentation. Regarding the contacts, I know there are some people requesting them. Don't worry, we will be sending an email with the presentations and the video of the webinar, so you can have access to all the information that we are sharing here. So stand by for some more information. And once again, thank you, Ana Cristina, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Now, moving forward, I would like to call on stage Soraya Lage, Head of Membership and Community Manager at Second Home. Soraya will be sharing a presentation with us regarding Second Home Lisboa specifically, and what it represents as an international community. So welcome, Soraya.
Hi, Andre. Thank you very much. I can still see the presentation from Ana. Okay.
Don't worry.
I'll try to do mine now.
The stage is yours. I will leave you, but anything you might need, I'll be on the backstage as always. Thank you, Soraya.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so I hope you can all see my screen, my presentation. Thank you, Startup Portugal, for inviting us to be here and to share a bit more with you about what we do at Second Home and how we keep our community as an international hub. I will start by showing you a video instead of making you read what we've put in the slides. And I will then give you a little bit of an introduction to who we are, our values, and how we connect people in a community as a brand and as a space. So I do hope this works.
At Second Home, we believe that good things happen when different industries, ideas, and people collide. That's why we work so hard to curate the broadest possible range of companies, from fashion and design through to technology, science, and the arts.
It's not just a professional looking place, but it's a mind-blowing place.
You might be sat next to an emerging early stage company, a venture capital investor, or even a multinational giant.
There's so much diversity here, and everybody is so kind of open-minded and collaborative and excited to be here and excited to be doing what they're doing.
Our launch team is always there to stir the pot and bring people together, ensuring that you're always connected to the creative community that's all around you.
Josh, on one of the first days that we were in here, sat us down, talked us through sort of the different contacts and different people that he knew, one of whom was Ragged Edge, the design agency that helped us with our brand identity and name. So just straight from the off, we've made so many influential contacts just literally by walking in the door.
There's definitely something special here, and I don't know if it's the sort of membership aspect of it, the sort of exclusivity, but everyone has a bigger incentive to help each other. A different paid forward culture that I haven't seen in other co-working spaces.
Every aspect of our architecture and our cultural program is designed to spark creative collisions, helping to bring about the cross-pollination between fields that we think is so vital for innovation today.
Yes, so that should have given you a really good idea of who we are and what we are trying to do with our spaces. I think here's just important to mention that we have 6 sites globally, so 4 of them are in London. We then have our space here in Lisbon and one in LA as well. So that allows us to have a global community that we can access and we can connect our members to. The way we do that is by basically activating these 3 pillars. So in terms of the design and the architecture of our spaces, we focus on having a space that people feel inspired to work. We use as well biophilia here in Lisbon. So we have more than 1,000 plants in the space. Then of course, culture, we have, our site is also a culture venue, and we used to have a lot of presential events. Now we have them virtually, but that is also a way to connect our sites globally. And then the community, of course, is the main focus. And as you can read there, our members tend to collaborate together. So over 90% of our members report to have had some sort of collaboration with one another, which is basically our goal. And I think the goal with this connection with the community is obviously to unlock the potential of the members that we have. So when someone joins our sites and they have a business that they want to flourish and grow, we can tap and unlock that potential by connecting them with people and ideas that are diverse and that can support them in their journey. We use a scale of 80-20, so that means that we try to have within our members 80% of that diversity in terms of industries and ideas and businesses, and then 20% will be members that can basically help the rest of the community grow. So we would be talking about VCs, accountants, or for example, design agencies. And that's how we bring everyone together. just to give you a little bit of a background of our community and looking at Lisbon in specific and how we set up to be a connector between our site and at the time only London and now LA as well. We acted as a soft landing place for a lot of international companies to start their work in Portugal. So they set an office at Second Home Lisboa. So far, we've been home to over 165 different companies, 350 members from over 22 different countries. And as you can see here, we had companies from the likes of Mercedes or Monaco or Pipedrive. So all of these companies, very rightly so, have outgrown our space. So they are now bigger than when they started, but Mercedes, as an example, has grown their digital hub to over 100 people. So they left, but for the best of the reasons. In terms of how we try to do the link between London and Lisbon, this is an example of an initiative that we had in partnership with Lisbon City Council, where we sent some of our members to London in the Innovation Immersion Program in 2018. So this was a way for us to have our members connecting with the members in London in a immersive way. But this is just one example. We do this on a daily basis. So if there's any way we can connect our members in Lisbon with our members in London, we can very easily do so, and that's our main goal. And just one note on how that is still possible, even though we know that traveling hasn't been as easy. We offer, as part of our membership, the opportunity to spend 5 days of the month in one of our other sites. So if a member is in Lisbon, they can go and spend 5 days in one of our sites in London, and that is obviously a great opportunity to have them connect with the community globally and specifically in the UK. We've hosted, as of now, over 10,000 guests and 500 events at Second Home Lisboa. When the pandemic started, we shifted, of course, from physical events to virtual events, and that has been, in our view, an opportunity. So people from all of our sites can actually attend the same events and connect afterwards, and obviously be inspired by the program that we can still put together. Another example of a connection between London and Lisbon is the partnership we had with the British Embassy. So we brought to Lisbon, top UK thinkers, innovators, and entrepreneurs, and we hosted the talks here at Second Home. And now looking more at the present moment. So I've just chosen 2 examples of current members that we have in Lisbon and that have benefited from the community that we set up here together with the community in London. So for example, Sylvia from Strawberry, Sylvia Cardin de Melo, has grown her team to up to 5 people. She started on her own here in 2018, and this was provided, of course, through introductions to members in the London sites. So she, including Garrett McNamara, for example, she was responsible for his brand when he was here in Lisbon. And then we also have She Codes with Matt Delac as the CEO. They started here at Second Home. They do a wonderful job in terms of bridging the gap, the gender gap. And they have set up workshops for women to learn how to code. And they've recently also started their foundation. So these are just 2 examples of members that we currently have that can still benefit from the connections that we offer globally. So that's it on our side. Of course, if you are based in Lisbon and you want to come and see us, we are now hosting presential tours, and you can book it directly with me. So if you do want to come in and have a look at the space and have a chat about how we can help you with our community, feel free to come and visit us at any point.
Thank you, Soraya. It was really helpful, and I know that there are people already asking to see the video that you shared. So if you could leave it on the chat box, it would be amazing.
Sure, I will. Thank you, Andre.
Thank you. Now moving forward, I would like to call on stage our guests for the debate panel, where we'll be picking Francisco Portal's brain, as well as Miguel Pinho's and Manuel Antunes. So if you could join us, I would like to ask each and every one of you guys to introduce yourselves, which is always better in these cases, since we'll be having a chat. I think it's always best to have a feel of a relaxed feel into it, let's say it like that. So welcome on stage, and thank you for joining us. So maybe we could start with Francisco Portal, which is the commercial director at GEMA. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing the name of the startup right, Francisco.
Yeah, it's correct. It's GEMA.
Yeah, so perfect. Yeah. As Portuguese as it can be. So can you tell us a little bit about GEMA?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much for inviting us to be part of this webinar. I'll try to give you a little bit of an overall thinking about what we do. So we are a creative tech agency that specialized on immersive and interactive content for exhibitions, for museums. So we work on a daily basis with software, with content, with AR, with VR, bespoke software installations, and some. So we deliver projects for companies, for instance, like UEFA, for Google, for Pelé, so with different kinds of scope. And now we are get into more the remote assistance. So our range is quite wide. So we can work on brand activation, but also on a big museum, like 30,000 square meters, with all the content, software development, and we have our own R&D department. Long story short.
Thank you, Francisco. Manuel Antunes is from Mustard Seed Maize. Manuel, do you want to share us a little bit about what Mustard Seed Maize does?
Sure. So Mustard Seed Maize is an early stage impact investor. We invest into businesses that are targeting some social and environmental problems. We've got a team based out in Lisbon and a team based out in London, and we typically invest at the pre-seed and seed stages of companies.
Talk about being short and sweet, right?
Yeah.
Thank you, Manuel. Miguel, now it's your turn. And before you go on, I would just like to point out that actually I'm glad to see that we have a VC, we have an accelerator, which I'm sure that Miguel will explain better what Seedcamp does. And we have a startup, all with operations in the UK. So this is, I'm already excited about this debate. Miguel, can you tell us a little bit about Seedcamp?
Yeah, glad to be here. So I'm Miguel. I'm the head of technology at Seedcamp. I've been at Seedcamp for 6 years and a bit now, which feels scary because time flies. And we're an early stage VC that also invests as pre-seed and seed stage. We started off in 2007, invested in 380 something companies by now, which is madness, but it keeps on growing and it's very exciting and love it.
That's great. Miguel, since you were the last person speaking, I will probably just go ahead and start with you, if that's okay. So can you tell us exactly what Seedcamp is looking in a startup? So when a startup is thinking about acceleration programs and so on, what should they be preparing to get into Seedcamp specifically?
Yeah, so I think that we invest at the pre-seed and seed stage, and one of the most common ways to think about it is kind of we invest in founders, right? So the founder market fit is something that is very critical. So why this team? Why is this team the best team to tackle this problem? Why now? So there's the timing, obviously, issue. In terms of stage, we've invested in companies that were at pre-revenue and some that already had some revenue. So the revenue stage is not critical. It really depends heavily on the sector. There's so many variables, right? That's saying that you need to make money for pre-seed or seed stage that wouldn't work for us. We're sector agnostic, so we invest across all sectors. So it's completely indifferent which sector you're in, as long as you're a tech company, which is what we look for. We're completely sector agnostic. And we mostly invest in Europe, not exclusively, but our focus, or geo focus, is Europe. We have some exceptions around the world, but yeah, pretty much if you're an European founding team, probably, we do invest in solo founders. That tends to be a question. It's harder of a sell, but it does happen. And yeah, hopefully that answers your question. So early stage founders.
So. Yeah. So just to make it clear, no need to have a headquarters on the UK to be part of Seedcamp, right?
Not at all. Like, it's not a requirement. I think there might be benefits of moving here, or opening an office, or being here for a while. I think that's especially true in the pre-pandemic world, where you could attend a lot of events and there's a lot of serendipity, and we're lucky enough to be one of the early players in the ecosystem in London and Europe in general, which means that we have a great relationship with large players like Google, and we're actually based at the Google for Startups building, which means that we have a large space. And the reason why I'm mentioning all this is, if you were to come to the UK and for example, after investment, you stay in our offices for a while, right? Which we will offer office space for free for a bit. Then you can randomly meet people. So there is a benefit of being here, but there's no requirement of being here pre-investment. And we will not force companies to move here post-investment either.
Thank you, Miguel. Manuel, so you're under the spotlight now. Since we were talking about this connection, UK, Portugal, I was curious, since Mustard Seed Maze have teams either in London and in Lisbon, do you guys promote any kind of relationship? Is there a mindset of facilitating people from Lisbon going to London and vice versa, by the way?
Yeah, so it's funny enough that we've seen businesses within our portfolio doing the opposite so far. So from London coming down to Lisbon, but I think that was more of a lifestyle preference than anything else. But I think we're perhaps one of the few investors in Portugal that offers that platform and that scaling factor, if you wish, which is we've got an extensive network from two of our partners that are London-based and where their network lays, which basically helps quite a lot when it comes for a business that wants to expand into the UK. We believe that we bring in the Portuguese kind of like local knowledge environment, but we provide at the same time the network that you desire from a UK VC fund. And this comes from the fact, it just comes from the fact that we've got a team whose history and base has been in London, and a team whose history and base has been in Portugal.
Thank you. And well, I will go back to you in a bit, Manuel. Thank you. Now, just to kind of finish this introductional round, I'll go back to Francisco. Francisco, talking about GEMA, I know that you recently created a spin-off company, right? Explorer. Yes. I hope I'm not mispronouncing it. So what kind of led you to create a new company? And the question that I think it's more important for the people that are watching the debate now is it based in the UK? How is the headquarters situation going for you guys?
So basically, our headquarters are still in Portugal. So we changed our strategy mainly because we understood we are trying to understand how the market works. But when we were like half fit here in the UK, it was not working really well because you need to have a structure here in the UK. So we had like a commercial force here in the UK, but it's the markets and the relationships between companies and people differ. So they are not exactly the same as we were used to in Portugal. So basically, we also opened a company here in the UK, in Cambridge, more precisely, where I'm based. Due to circumstances. So basically the business environment also, and we choose Cambridge especially because of 5 different situations. So it was between London and Cambridge. And Cambridge was because of there is like a region, it's called the Silicon Fen, which is the Cambridge cluster. You have several high-tech companies, mainly with software, electronics, biotech, that are based in here. Just to give you a few examples, AstraZeneca, ARM, which is a semiconductor and the software design company, which most of the people don't know, but they make all the, or they are the market leader for the processors and microprocessors that we use in our laptops, in every Android and the iPhone. So they are the market leader. And you have also such as Booking, Microsoft, Apple, Spotify, Siemens, General Electrics. They also have companies here. So it's the Cambridge cluster, then it's the transport. So before COVID, I used to travel a lot through the UK, but also through Europe, and a little bit around most recently to China, and access to talent, which is, so we have the Cambridge University around here, and you have business incubators and also the reputation. So our target is also the UK, to establish our presence here in the UK, but also Middle East, and to have the reputation. Bringing the UK with us is it's definitely a good point. But we have most of our team is based in Portugal, but we had to open a structure here to have the confidence for some of our clients.
Okay, and that actually raises, I think, two good questions. So thank you, Francisco, for sharing that your experience. Now opening up to all of you guys, when we think in the UK market, at least when I think in the UK market, I always think about London, you know, and obviously what Francisco said kind of puts that argument into perspective. So is there really a need to think about going to London when we're thinking about opening operations in the UK? Are there any caveats about going for London instead of going for any other city? How do you guys feel about it? Manuel, do you want to go?
Sure. I mean, coming from Portugal into the UK, I think the first thing, at least from a founding perspective, I think there's at this point that there might be some Brexit concerns when it comes to just having those permits to be there full time. Then it's similarly, you've got a bit of a cost related issue, which is like, it feels like professional services in the UK are significantly more expensive, but it's all about weighting the benefits of being there. And again, if your investors are there, if your network and your business is meant to be run there, then we're fully supportive of those marginal costs that in the end, yes, there's some orders of magnitude greater, especially in terms of the professional services cost, but it's marginal when it comes to a venture scale business. So I think those would be the considerations when looking into expanding, into jumping there.
Yeah, so in that sense, London doesn't really need to be the place. I mean, Francisco went for Cambridge because of talent, for instance. So is that something that we can have in mind when thinking about scaling up? Also because of the marginal cost that probably London has instead of, let's say, Brighton or Cambridge, probably. What do you think about it?
So from our perspective, the companies that we've got in our portfolio that have decided to set themselves closer to Cambridge, closer to Oxford, closer to some of those university towns, has been mostly decided in the back of some sort of deep technology or deep science close relationship with those universities. Because ultimately, if the business is just I want to call it like an average tech business, you probably benefit a bit more by the tech ecosystem and the serendipity that Miguel was mentioning about bumping into other co-founders. And effectively the chance of you bumping into other very exciting co-founders that have gone through a similar path as you ends up being more likely in London than it is in some of the university towns. So in that sense, unless there is a very clear product and research technicality that is indeed desired to be closer to one of those universities and that talent, we would perhaps recommend a greater presence in London.
Okay, thank you, Manuel. Miguel, do you share the same opinion? And I would say so based on what you shared, but still I'm a little bit curious about it, because in Portugal, what we understand, and always a comparison always comes short when it comes to results. I know about it. But still, when we think about Portugal, mostly people think about Lisbon. But I would say that if you want to go for more technical or engineering-oriented kind of environment, I would say that the north would be better for you to have your startup base. You know, is the UK similar somehow, given your experience, and since your portfolio has many verticals? Is there any vertical-specific geography, or is London the place to be?
That's an interesting question, like many questions wrapped into one. So as a northerner from Portugal, so I'm from close to Porto, I do sense the whole, there is more than Lisbon onto it. So like I need to wave that flag. I think that if I would be a founder that would be abroad and would be considering opening an office in the UK, my framework of thinking would be London by default unless justified. That's kind of like, that's how I think about it, probably, as I would have London be the default, unless there is a very strong reason of like, look, strategically, we have this partnership with this university that will help us heavily. We have this pipeline of talent. We have so many companies, and now a story from a company I can't name had this really interesting strategy of hiring from people from India that were in regions where the universities were good and weren't well connected. And that was literally like the most specific reason on why opening offices and hiring people in those regions. And the reason was like, look, these are very, very well-educated people that are not as willing to move away, because moving away means longer, you know, trips to come back. Therefore, they tend to stay, and culturally they tend to stay. So my point being, London by default, other geographies or other cities, if the reason justifies. The truth is, like, there's a lot of benefits of being in London. So whether that's from talent, meeting other VCs for later stage investments, you know, for follow-on investments after Seedcamp invests, it's just easier, right? It just simplifies, shortcuts the entire process. You can meet a lot more people much faster if you're in a place where there's high density of investors, of talent, of all that. So like, yeah, I would probably go for London by default, unless strong reasons for why not. That's kind of the framework I'd go for.
Okay, so because here at Startup Portugal, when we're talking about relocating, so doing the process, the inverse process, we never say straight to Lisbon. You know, obviously Lisbon is great, but we are Startup Portugal, so we advocate for the whole territory. So I'm always curious about how other markets really work. Francisco, having operations in both the UK and Portugal, but still being in Cambridge, right? Which is a little bit curious. So how often do you find yourself going to London? Is that
so before to be honest, is something that, for instance, I take less time to be in central London rather than people who live in central London to get to central London. So to give you, I take like 55 minutes to get from home to London. And then most of our clients or meetings are in central London. So before COVID, I would go like 2-3 times per week. Now I don't go. So last time I went was like 1 year ago. But even right now, I think that it will change a lot, because most or some of the companies, I think they will. So there are a lot of companies moving to places outside London, especially because of the rates. And I think the pandemic outbreak will change, not entirely, but some in some ways how people work on a daily basis. But I would go to, like, sometimes I would stay like 3 days. Some weeks I would not even go to London. But it's quite easy, quite simple. I'm able to work on the train, and the train takes like 55 minutes to London, so it's no traffic, so it's kind of quick to go there.
And also, since you have the experience in both markets, how do you feel that culturally Portugal has a good fit with the UK? I mean, the time zone is perfect. So if you want to move to the UK, it's really easy. You're already sharing the GMT.
Yeah. So, but what I find, so I think here, our experience tells you that it's more easier to meet people and to meet directors. Rather, in Portugal is more difficult to have a meeting with the decision maker. However, if you don't have, so it's kind of polite for them to refuse a meeting, but if you don't have a connection, a link, a reference, it will be extremely hard for you to do business with them. So which takes you, for instance, some of our strategy is networking, and especially to create partnerships, because if you have a company here, and our business is very specific, so we provide a service, and there should be a lot of trust. So for instance, one of our first projects here was with Cambridge, the University of Cambridge, and our project is used, or our solution is used in over 90 countries across the globe. So it has to be a very confident and a trustable relationship between us and the Cambridge University to have like a foreigner company. That was also one of the decisions to open an office and a company here, because otherwise, if you don't have a structure, it's unlikely for you to do business with them. So the biggest difference is how people interact. I think it's so, long story short, it's more easy to meet, but it's harder to do the business if you don't have a link, if you don't have a reference, if they don't know you. So if you just book a meeting and try to sell your products, is very hard for them. So two of our biggest clients here is the University of Cambridge and another project that we have. So we are partners of UEFA Champions League since 2018, and it was due to networking events that we had.
Thank you, Francisco. I've been getting, before we move on, I've been getting a couple of messages from Pedro Patrício from AICEP, and
yes,
he's really eager to share his opinion on this. So Pedro, go ahead.
I wouldn't know about eager, but certainly it's a pleasure to share my opinions. I was trying to join with the camera, but I'm not capable. But I just wanted to say, here it was stated London by default, and Manuel has also mentioned that he thought and explained why London could be more interesting. And of course, it's clear that there are various advantages of considering London, and maybe probably London could be the best location for some of the audiences here. Nevertheless, it doesn't mean that the audience, when they consider coming to the UK, that they shouldn't speak with the other cities, with the ecosystem as a whole, so that they can take the better decision that best adapts to themselves. And DIT's presentation showed that the UK is not London, in the same way that we in Portugal would like to say that Lisbon is certainly not Portugal. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro. And well, I think it's a curious opinion, and it kind of goes to what I had in mind regarding the UK, but still it's good to have opposite opinions and this kind of experience. Do you guys want to weigh in on this?
Yes, if just for 2 seconds. I think when I said London by default, is not necessarily that you shouldn't consider other places. It's more, if you do, there should be a why. So whatever you do, you need to think through it. That's kind of my process, as in not only think London and that's because of where everyone's going, but more, there's a lot of benefits of large networks and mass, and there's and being part of a place that has high density, and other places have other benefits. It's about doing it rationally and looking at the pros and cons of all of the regions. But if for me, like there's a lot of benefits of being in London. That's kind of why London by default in my brain. But that doesn't mean that you should not look at other places. I think a founder that wouldn't consider other places is doing a bad job, to be honest, because he should, or she should.
I think it's similar to what's happening in Portugal, actually. You know, people usually think to go to Lisbon, but it doesn't mean that you could not find a good reason to go to other places. And obviously having a community side to it in Lisbon makes it easier, but it doesn't mean that Porto, for instance, doesn't offer the same kind of advantage.
And we have companies all over the place, right? We have companies all over the UK, and I have friends that have companies all over Portugal, right? So that's not, I don't mean it by any means that you need to be in London. It's just, you need to be strategic and thoughtful about it. That's
obviously
more what I mean.
And I think that's something that also sets Portugal apart from the UK, is that obviously Portugal is way smaller, you know. So if you are in, for instance, Fundão, you can be in Lisbon in tops 3 hours, and that always facilitates things when it comes to making business and so on. And the UK is not exactly the same. So I would say if you are in Manchester, it's probably not as easy if you in that sense to be in London or something else. And maybe you don't need to be in London for that matter. But since Miguel, since you were speaking, I was curious. Is there any trends regarding verticals that you see currently in the UK? So if PT-based founder is looking to scale up their businesses to the UK, do you think there's a fad in terms of specific industries or something that VCs are looking for at this point?
In our case, again, just to make it clear, we're sector agnostic. So we invest across all sectors. So we don't specialize in anything. We're definitely seen, because of the context of London and because of our history, we see a lot of fintech coming up and the evolutions, DeFi and all those acronyms that show up now everywhere. So there's definitely a lot of that. There's a lot of the future of work, and we've been very lucky to invest in Hopin, which is now very well known in the super early days, and the timing for them as a company was very favorable. I think that the future of work will be significantly different from what it was for multiple companies, about exploring. I think many companies are now considering, you know, a hybrid model, which before was for many companies was like never happening. We need to go into an office and everybody needs to sit at their desk. So I think the future of work is definitely something that we see a lot of. I think health tech is also definitely very, 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 we've been active in that space for a while, and it's definitely ramping up, if that makes sense. But those are the first three ones that come to mind. Thankfully, we see lots of deal flow from all of the sectors, but those are the first ones that come to mind.
Thank you, Miguel. Manuel, now going back to you, and since we need to be a little bit quick because unfortunately we're running out of time, I would like to just ask you if you have any pointers that you would like to share with Portuguese founders looking to expand to the UK.
Thank you. I mean,
it's a
myself, I haven't gone through that experience.
It's an open question,
how much
kind of.
Can we provide on that end? But yeah. I think the first thing, if the UK is an important place for you to be, I think choosing an investor that or having the chance to engage with an investor that has a meaningful base there, I think is a very important step for you to be able to make that leap. It's a lot easier for you to do this transition if you already have someone who has a vested interest into your company base out there. And then it's really to question if London is the right place to be as well. And in most cases it is, but it might be the case that maybe you're very well off not being in London. So I think it's a case-by-case scenario, and it's not like every venture needs to be in London to be successful. I don't think there's such a narrative that we could apply to.
Yeah, and I think, for instance, just to give you a point here, I think before I moved, I think London was definitely, so I never considered Cambridge while I was living in Portugal as our first choice. So London is what was on our mind. So when we gave a little thought, and after 5 years here, I definitely do not regret, and definitely it was the wisest choice for us due to the circumstances, due to the nature of our work, and especially so we go. So I have several friends, Portuguese friends in London. I go there very often. Networking is never an issue. Of course, it's easier, but sometimes I take less time to come home. While, for instance, if I go to a networking event with friends and colleagues in London, sometimes I arrive home earlier than them, and I live in Cambridge and they live in London. So the time difference is relative. But especially after 5 years, I do not regret, especially because of the relationships that I was able to create and establish with the directors of big companies here. And I think in London, of course, the density is much more higher. You have more opportunities, you have more chance to meet more people. But I think here the time goes a little bit slower, and you have more time with quality with people, and you are able to establish long-term this is my opinion, but I'm with 2 steps, but I do not regret with our decision. But of course, you don't have any bounds here. I think also probably London would be the first choice also. I agree with that.
Thank you, guys. I would probably move on to the Q&A, if that's okay with you guys. We have a bunch of interesting questions, so, and kind of doing a connection between one question that I find here in the Q&A and with Mustard Seeds. There's João Pedro Loureiro asking if either Seedcamp or Mustard Seed Maze invest in hardware companies. But before we move on, we kind of have the perspective of an agnostic fund or an agnostic accelerator in terms of industries or verticals. Manuel, how are things looking up for impact businesses in the UK? I know that consumers are more and more concerned about this kind of businesses, and it's something that it's really important in that end. But how's your experience there in the UK, and how are things are looking up for this kind of business there?
A lot of new ventures that are coming up tend to be of founders that are somewhat environmentally focused or that have a mandate around the social issue. So something we see is that even though, because technology, the different use cases for technology these days, it happens that a lot of people, especially younger generations, tend to be tilted towards trying to solve some of these large issues that we're facing on a daily basis. And so what we see is that generically, we understand that a lot of the businesses we're investing in, sector agnostic investors, just like Seedcamp, happen to be equally interested on those. And if I were to try to place a figure, I would say that about 40 to 50% of businesses that are created these days tend to have some sort of an environmental or a social angle to it, which makes it really nice for us when it comes to co-investing with sector agnostic typical VC funds. And that's perhaps the reason why we co-invested so many times with Seedcamp already in the recent years. But then when it comes to this split between what happens in London, what happens in Portugal, what happens elsewhere, perhaps we see a tiny bit more being done on this front in the UK as opposed to Portugal. But I would say that we see a tiny bit less in the UK than we would see perhaps in Germany or in Sweden when it comes to these impact-oriented businesses.
Okay, and so getting back to João Pedro's question, would you invest in a hardware company as long as it has probably an impact or sustainability mindset?
So we at Mustard Seed Maze, we're still a small fund. We're still new to this ecosystem. And what that means is that we tend to deviate from businesses that require meaningful amounts of capital, just because we don't have meaningful amounts of capital ourselves. And so what we have understood from our, again, humble and short experience was that the businesses that has a meaningful part of hardware associated to it would require capital at a greater scale than what we can often provide. We've invested in a couple of IoT hardware related businesses, but these have always been businesses where outstanding teams have basically overweighted the decision and overweighted the CapEx requirement of the business, if you might.
Okay, thank you. Miguel, this question was also addressed to you, so want to pitch in?
Yeah, we definitely invest in businesses that have hardware. I mean, I obviously agree with everything that Manuel said. So it's just harder, it's more expensive. So it's kind of a harder sell, but we have, I mean, one company that came to mind is Beeline, which is literally a tool that helps you guide when you're cycling or on a motorbike. That's one of our companies that has done it. So yes, we do invest in it. I think it's a harder sell for founders, but for us, yes, totally fine.
Thank you. Now, Adriel Oliveira from Shimejitu, which is a company that Startup Portugal has been supporting for a long time. So he's regular on our webinars and our programs. But Adriel is asking a wonderful question, which is, what is different now in the macroeconomic perspective for VCs after the pandemic when you choose to invest? He says that I think it's not coherent to use the same metrics and logic as before. It's kind of an answer and a question at the same time, but do you guys want to pitch in? Francisco, I know that you're not a VC, but maybe you have something to share because you've raised money recently, right? I'm not.
Yes, we raised, but it was in Portugal Ventures. So it was so GEMA is we have a few companies. So GEMA is, we don't like to call it a group, but is the biggest company, and we have other related companies. It's our strategy is to focus our business just to have specific service and companies, not to spread a lot. So we have AV company, we have a production company for content, we have a digital marketing company, and we have the most recent is Explorer. And Explorer is an augmented reality app that we raised money from Portugal Ventures, and basically it's used on museums, on the arenas. So basically we develop a solution that Explorer was awarded at the second top visitor experience in the arenas across the globe. So it's used in the Benfica Stadium. We are using in the Amsterdam Arena, where is the home of Ajax. We have 2 of the top 10 clubs in the world working with them. In the UK, I cannot give you any insight about funding because we didn't raise funding in the UK. What we have been doing is having an amazing support from AICEP and also from DIT. With Cristina Abreu team, but also with the team in the UK. With, for instance, there are a lot of different programs that you can use. I know that is not specific to that question, but just to give you a topic. For instance, Innovate to Succeed, Trade Missions. So basically, they have several projects and programs here that they can help you to put in contact with also investors and with incubators also.
Thank you, Francisco. Miguel, Manuel, do you guys want to answer the macroeconomic perspective question? So what has changed in the post-pandemic scenario?
Happy to just give our view, Miguel, please feel free. Realistically, so post-pandemic, I think, and also due to the stage of businesses we invest in, it's not like we've got like very specific metrics or very specific multiple analysis or like discounted cash flow analysis as we've learned in business school. And so what has changed perhaps is that we've dedicated a lot more conviction to it. We've dedicated a lot more weight on the decisions we make based on the team, and perhaps kind of like And the reason why so is that from our portfolio, we've seen that businesses that have done the best have been the ones led by businesses that by teams that have been extremely strong. But other than that, we don't think there have been meaningful changes to our targets when it comes to like product traction, revenue traction, and so on when it comes to deciding to invest or not to invest.
Thank you.
Yeah, for us, I think it's very similar. I think in terms of the requirements are very similar for the companies we invest in. I think if you're in a sector that was heavily hit by the pandemic, you know, life might be harder now, you know, and there are some sectors that were heavily hit, and we have quite a few companies in the portfolio that were heavily hit by it, and we have a few companies in the portfolio like Hopin that highly benefited from it. So I think if you're heavily hit, then it's harder to potentially raise an initial round now, because there's still uncertainty about the follow-on rounds that you might need in 6 months, a year time, and if there will be appetite from the investors then to raise that round. So there's that kind of like the follow-on rounds impacts the initial round that we might invest in. So there is, but it only applies if you're in a sector that, if you're in a sector that has been heavily hit by the pandemic. If not, and maybe just one thing that came to mind on the hardware thing, just to finalize, we invested in a company called Pointy a few years ago that was acquired by Google. So yeah, we definitely invest in hardware. Just came to mind afterwards. I was like, I definitely need to mention that. So yes, we invest in hardware.
Thank you, Miguel. So we have two final questions before moving on. I know that we are running a little bit late, so thank you for sticking around. So Nuno Marujo is asking, so it's two questions from the same person, is asking, what do you think is the biggest challenge for being in the UK? And how easier is it to boost your networking working from London comparing from living in Portugal? Patrício, do you want to go first?
So I think the pinpoint, so I think there is a lot of uncertainty because of how the market will evolve, especially because of the new legislations. We don't have face-to-face meetings. Fortunately, our business was not very affected, but let's see how it evolves in 2022. But here, I would say, especially, is to create and to establish new business and new income and new projects for us, especially because it's much more harder to network. I think, as I was mentioning before, if you don't have any bound, if you don't have any connection with new customers, it will be really hard to pitch and to find new opportunities. So it will have to go through partnerships, companies that have already established relationships with potential customers, and but I think it will be better in September, because here you can see a lot of more events, more thing. I think especially is that from our perspective is that, so we are implementing a new strategy for the UK market, especially because we are having a big project in the Middle East. Happening in one month time, and we will take leverage on that to establish, because there is an interesting thing that Manuel mentioned before. So you have a lot of UK companies opening in Portugal, and I think it's across the globe. So I think it's a good opportunity, especially because of the Brexit. For UK companies, they will have to create relationships with companies to increase their. So I think it will bring new opportunities for us. So we are based in Portugal, but we are also based in here, and I think it will create new opportunities for both sides.
Thank you. Manuel, do you want to add something to this point regarding what's more difficult or not?
No, I don't think we've got much to add on that point.
Thank you. Miguel?
Yeah, I agree. I think like the networking in London is just very efficient. And I think with the world reopening, it will be more. I mean, the amount of events that happens in London when it's not in a pandemic is mad. Like you're picking which event you attend every day. That's the biggest difference that I remember. It's like, I wasn't, when I was in Portugal, I was in Porto mostly. So I don't know how it is in Lisbon, to be fair. So I might be wrong, but in Porto, it's like you have a few events happening a week, which are great. And it's a very close, tight network. So like, and that was great. Here is like you have 3 every day and you need to pick one. So I think for the first year, every day you could pretty much eat for free every day, and just go and have pizza and drinks and meet someone every day. Like you never pay for dinner. If you're like a cheap founder, you can eat for free every day for a year in London. That's a fact. And you'll meet a lot of people. It will be great. Yeah, so just the amount of events is wild.
Thank you. Pedro Patrício from AICEP is raising his hand. Pedro, you want to pitch in on this?
Yeah, well, I'll just add to what Miguel said. It's quite true. You could eat for free throughout the whole year. But my point is here, being based in London, and in transversal, not only in this sector. In fact, it is true that the networking conditions here are extraordinary, and the potentiality is extraordinary. So that is clear advantage. And if I might add to what Francisco said, yes, Brexit can be can bring some positive aspects for the cooperation between Portuguese and British companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Pedro. And so last question before we end the session would be from Mark Vedel. And I think this is an important question because is asking, so what is the best way to reach you? And I would like to twist this question a little bit to make it, if somebody is looking to get investment, to raise investment or to raise some money from Mustard Seed Maze or to join Seedcamp, what are the necessary steps to do so? Manuel, do you want to go first?
Sure. I mean, just get in touch with someone from our investment team. Myself personally, I've got my email on my LinkedIn. Just, I don't know, look us through LinkedIn, ping us a message. And
easy as that.
We've also got like a small form on our website if you're interested, but feel free to reach us directly. We're a small team and small fund. So.
That makes sense. Thank you, Manuel. Miguel, is it as straight for Seedcamp as it is for Mustard Seed Maze?
Yeah, it's very similar actually. I think for raising money, if you have a common link, it always helps, to get that warm intro. If you can find it, the network is big, but it's not that big. And you're pretty much one link away. I bet like most people on this call are like a link away from knowing someone that knows someone at Seedcamp, Max. So if you get that warm intro, that's the perfect scenario. But that being said, we have a form on our website that is super straightforward, that will make sure that we have all the information we need to review your company. We look at all the submissions, which is sometimes people wonder, like, do they really look? Yes, we look at all of them, which is many, but we do look at all of the submissions. And we invest from companies sometimes we didn't know anybody, and they just submitted a form and it's great, and we invest. So that has happened multiple times in the past, and it will continue to happen. So come to us through the network if possible. If that's not a possibility, or it's harder, or for whatever reason that's not a path, an optional path, then definitely just fill up the form on our website and we'll look at the company, evaluate it, and potentially invest.
Thank you, Miguel, and thank you guys, Francisco, Manuel, and Miguel once again for your takes on the UK market. I found it really interesting, and I hope that people on the audience share the same opinion as I do. So thank you for joining us and for giving up some time to share your knowledge with us. And I think we've reached an end for this session. So once again, thank you guys for making time. I'd like to thank Pedro Patrício from AICEP for his kind participation. I'd like to thank Cristina Abreu and Soraya Lage for their presentations, which I found really interesting as well. And again, we'll be sharing all this information with everyone who registered, so keep an eye out for an email. And yeah, go for startupportugal.com/go global if you want to know more about other markets that we are going for or we are supporting Portuguese entrepreneurs. And also to check out the video when we eventually upload it. No promises on that end, but once again, thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
And speak soon, I hope.